Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Taking a look at FAA webcam shot here. This is Nelson Lagoon out there in the Alaska Peninsula. Pretty nice day today. You can see a lot of clearing in the skies there. Got a few clouds around, keeps it interesting. And this afternoon, winds out of the south, though, at about 20 miles an hour, 20-25, temperature right around 50 degrees. Conditions deteriorate as you head down over toward Cold Bay and also up into Bristol Bay. So it was nice along the lee side of the Aleutian Range and Alaska Peninsula, all the way up to Pilot Point. Also, Port Hayden, pretty nice day today. Otherwise, hazardous weather graphic, nothing is shaded in with any color, so there are no watches, no warnings, no advisories for the state, anywhere in the state for tonight and probably tomorrow, or through tomorrow. On the satellite, you can see why a distinct lack of storminess here going on, with showers pretty much ended this afternoon across the southeast coast, as due to the advance of this next system coming up. You call it the calm before the storm there, and also nice along the North Gulf Coast, south central Alaska. We had some mid-level clouds coming up with this batch of moisture down through here associated with a trough that's pulling back to the northwest there. And kind of a windy, breezy day here at Dillingham and northeast Bristol Bay. As that lifts northward, you can see as that pulled away, the skies cleared out here, it's like we just saw over the Alaska Peninsula. Then back into the rain for the eastern Aleutians, but not a lot of rain, just about a little over 1/10 of an inch in the last 24 hours at Unalaska. Otherwise, kind of a breezy pattern here with a low pressure pulling up to the north and then pulling northwest there for the Alaska Peninsula. So places like Cold Bay had wind gusts to 40 miles per hour today, as well as out of the southeast. And Farewell had also reported a gust to 40 miles per hour out of the southeast, and Cape Newfoundland as well, one of the windier areas there. So kind of breezy. Otherwise, the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta seeing wind speeds around the 25 to 30 mile per hour range in gusts. Up to the north, you can see a band of clouds there associated with a weak trough that brought about 1/2 inch of snow to the central Arctic coast earlier today. Tapering off now, spreading eastward and also southward, but really just light flurries back through here, and not much more than that up along the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. And not bad, just areas of clouds here over the interior with pretty much precipitation free. Otherwise, looking at not much out over the Bering Sea, weak low here south of the Pribilos. I'll continue to push northward tonight, now associated with this boundary here that brought the precipitation just a little over 1/10 of an inch here at Unalaska. St. George only had 3/100 of an inch so far with that, so really not much of a rain producer at all. And moving on to today, here's a trough here that brought the moisture into the southwest coast, along with the breezy conditions. Winds lighter behind that trough, really the gradient here across the southwest and interior due to the high Arctic high here holding over the eastern interior. For the most part, pressures are falling though, and the center weakening and starting to slide off to the east, but enough gradient there kept it breezy. And really just clouds and scattered showers, except for the rain here in Bristol Bay and the rain associated with this 986 millibar low from near the Pribilofs down across the eastern Aleutians. A break with some clearing here, central Aleutians, and then some showers of that weak trough moving into the Shimia area, and then the areas of light snow here for the mainly the central and eastern Arctic coast, flurries back to the west. And for Kodiak, about 1/10 of an inch of rain fell here, but that tapering off this afternoon. So that fell earlier with those areas of clouds. Again, that whole mess pulling up to the northwest. And for tonight, dry over the panhandle, at least this evening, and probably till after midnight. Toward morning, rain pushes across Prince of Wales Island. By early morning, may make Metlakatla area and up to Port Alexander. Timing, give or take a couple hours either way. Fair in the north, winds were lighter today. They were still a little breezy in some areas, but nothing like yesterday with a wind warning out. And that'll continue through tonight. No wind over the eastern interior, with mostly clear skies, so temperatures in some areas fall below zero once again. That trough stays hung up along the Arctic coast there, especially on the east side. Periods of light snow continue. Isolated showers, kind of some leftover moisture here, nothing significant along the Alaska Range, Kenai Peninsula, and actually a decrease in the precipitation occurring over the southwest interior. And this low will definitely bring steady rain that you're already starting to see there over the Pribilofs. And then that front will push eastward into the Alaska Peninsula. Keep the winds kind of gusty, 25 gusts 35, except for Cold Bay, could see 40 again, and showers swinging across the central Aleutians with that trough, and then chance of snow or mixed rain and snow for the Bering Strait. But again, amounts will be quite light. And for tomorrow, well, that front weakens into a trough, almost the same setup as we had today here, except less precipitation in the Bristol Bay area and the Kuskokwim Delta, as well as, but the Yukon Delta still rain and snow showers, chance of rain and snow up towards St. Lawrence Island, winds east, gusts 35 miles an hour, a little less up through the Bering Strait, and some scattered showers over the eastern Aleutians. Colder air coming down out of the Russian Far East there, probably going to drop those snowfall levels down towards sea level. So look for mostly snow showers, but it'll be light snow showers and kind of scattered for the far western Aleutians. And look for gale force winds and rain associated with this front as the whole low pressure area pushes east-northeast and the front comes in. That'll push the rain up to Juneau, maybe Haines, possibly Skagway, maybe there, but definitely wet conditions there for tomorrow. Fair over the interior and partly to mostly clear. South central Alaska, head south though and pick up the clouds. Southern Cook Inlet becomes rain there for Kodiak Island. And still this trough keeps it cloudy with flurries, especially the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, even the central areas. And then taking a look ahead into Tuesday. There we go. Thought the batteries died on me. You can see tightening of the gradient up here, upper level low dropping southward, really pulling some pretty cold air down. Bulk of it going into the Yukon or into the Northwest Territories here, Mackenzie River Delta, but some of that's going to spill into the northeast interior and see some pretty good winds. And with that upslope snowfall, light snow, really light here in this area with clouds, Northway Toke and maybe up toward Eagle there, but pretty good gradients, so we'll see some good northeast winds blowing through the passes of the Brooks Range, and kind of a little bit breezy, but not too bad here over the southern interior. This intense storm pulling northward, remnants of hurricane or typhoon. I can't recall the name now, but it could bring storm force winds up to the eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula. This front is after about Tuesday. Actually, by this time Tuesday, it's going to start weakening considerably. And when it gets into the Gulf, Tuesday night and Wednesday, it's really going to get shredded and be eviscerated probably by Wednesday night. Otherwise, for Tuesday, kind of unsettled and cloudy and damp over the southeast coast, and really not too bad over the Bering Sea, and this strong easterly gradient pushing VFR flying conditions right out to the Bering Sea and a little ways offshore. And for lows tonight, anywhere from 5 to 15 below or so here up over the eastern interior areas, and lows in the mid-20s there for the central western Arctic coast. Still mild here, Bristol Bay, lows in the lower 40s. Same thing for Kodiak Island, upper 30s for the Aleutians. And lows here, 22 at Yakutat, lower 20s to upper 30s, really depending on, of course, the cloud's going to be increasing here along the coast. And for the highs tomorrow, shade above zero, single numbers in teens east side, and mid-20s eastern Arctic coast to mid to upper 40s, 45 to 50 Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island, Bristol Bay, upper 30s, lower 40s for the Panhandle, mid-40s for the central Aleutians. And then for Tuesday morning, falling back below zero here up over the northeast interior, and to about 10 in the central Tanana Valley, right around freezing southern Alaska, followed by highs about the same.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First line weather graphic for Monday morning. Pretty much VFR over the southeast coast, except for the coast of Prince of Wales Island, and that extends over in toward Prince William Sound, starting out marginal VFR here over south central Alaska, Kenai Peninsula, IFR, southwest coast, St. Lawrence Island, north central Bering Sea, and some IFR up here over the north slope, and then diminishes on out to the eastern Arctic coast. And then for the afternoon, got some IFR here increasing along the south coast of the Panhandle, otherwise marginal VFR spreading northward across Lincoln Glacier Bay, Gulf of Alaska, VFR, Kenai Peninsula, Cook Inlet, Susitna, Matanuska Valley, I think will be VFR tomorrow afternoon, as well as the Copper River Basin and the Alaska Range here. I think that stuff will disappear during the afternoon. Otherwise, some IFR lingering here from the Kuskokwim Valley into the northern Bering Sea, Alaska Peninsula, west of the Pribilof, so you're in the VFR zone there for St. Paul and St. George, especially St. George on down to the central Aleutians, marginal along and south of the western Aleutians. Moving on to Tuesday morning, more widespread IFR here from St. Lawrence Island, right into the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, eastern of the Kuskokwim Valley, and the mid-Yukon River Valley areas, up actually almost up to the western Alaska Range. Stays VFR here, south central Alaska, maybe the Copper River Basin, into the central interior, then back to marginal VFR. IFR, central and southern, or the southern three-quarters of the Panhandle there, with marginal VFR to the north, and not too bad out here over the Aleutians and the southwest and southern Bering Sea. And then for the afternoon, marginal VFR along and north of the Aleutians out here, except for the Fox Islands, marginal VFR for the Alaska Peninsula. Breaking out the pretty good VFR here for much interior Alaska. IFR lingering along the central and eastern north slope, and a little bit there near Nunavik Island, Yukon Delta coast. A lot of IFR though in over the Panhandle from Dixon Entrance right on up into the Lincoln Glacier Bay area and extending westward a little bit there with the marginal VFR, Cape Yakataga, up across the Wrangell Mountains, possibly stretching all the way up to Nebezna, Northway, maybe Tok, and possibly up here over the White Mountains there. And for passes tomorrow, Anaktuvik, marginal VFR, and it looks occasionally marginal for Adigan as well. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, starting out marginal, becoming VFR in the afternoon, and rainy, VFR the entire day tomorrow. Same forecast for windy, VFR, be clouds around, but above the threshold of marginal VFR. And for Isabel, VFR, and Mentasta also looking pretty good. Tanita, VFR. Portage starting out marginal, becoming VFR, and Chilkoot and White, VFR, becoming marginal VFR, that moisture spreading northward. And for the freezing levels, again, quite a gradient here across the Panhandle, 2,000 feet in the north there, south of Skagway, right over Haines, to 8,000 to 10,000 feet over the Queen Charlottes, and 2,000 to 4,000 feet, still a fair ways to the north here over the Seward Peninsula, 2,000 feet there near Kotzebue. And the surface right up into the Arctic Ocean there, 2,000 feet here over the Bering Sea. And icing, this is approaching the Alaska Peninsula Eastern Aleutians, but won't make landfall until probably Monday evening. And this area here, pushing in across the Panhandle of that system, and there'll be a batch of moisture extending westward all the way over to Kodiak Island, just some scattered possible areas of light icing. I wouldn't even throw any considerable moderate in that at all, and then even less of a risk there for the western Brooks Range. Jet stream got an upper level low here south of St. Lawrence Island, another one south of the Fox Islands, so pretty good trough here over the Bering Sea with the lower freezing levels. This one in the Gulf swinging up to the north there, and high pressure pulling off to the northwest, and the other western Canada high breaking down. And for the 9,000 foot wind flow, we're looking at 30 to 40 knots here coming eastward along the coast, along and off the coast of the Panhandle tomorrow. 25 out of the east here coming into the Kenai Peninsula, lighter up over the interior there with higher pressure, 10 to 15 knots, and pretty light winds for the Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, 25 to 35 here along the southwest coast. About the same pattern here at 3,000 feet, windy. Pribilof Islands along the southwest coast of Kodiak, Lighter winds to the north, only 10 to 20 out there over the Aleutians. Turbulence-wise, look for occasional moderate chop, pretty widespread there over the Panhandle and along the southwest coast.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, and joining me once again is Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska, based up at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Eric, welcome back to the program.
Hey, I'm glad to be here.
And once again, you brought some wonderful satellite pictures to show us and do a little show and tell about. It's just amazing. I can get lost in satellite pictures all day. What did you bring today?
Right. Well, weather satellites, what are they good for? Yeah. Of course, there's the pretty pictures that they bring us. You know, we've got a picture here from April of 2012. Okay. The Sumi NPP satellite, it's what they call a polar orbiter, which means it covers Alaska because we're near the pole. Beautiful image. You can see a storm off of southeast Alaska, the sea ice along the Bering Sea up into the Arctic. A really nice picture, and this is important because it allows a forecaster to see where the storms are, where the ice is, where the clear areas are. You need to know where the weather is now if you're going to forecast it into the future. Exactly. So satellites give us these good pictures. This is called surveillance of the weather. And you know, that same satellite also has another picture from a little more recently, August of 2014, Tropical Storm Iselle bearing down on the Hawaiian Islands. Hawaii doesn't get hit by a whole lot of tropical storms or hurricanes. Sometimes it does. And here's a picture from the same satellite, the Sumi NPP Polar Orbiter. It shows Tropical Storm Iselle approaching the Hawaiian Islands from the southeast. You can see the storm swirling away there, and then there's the Hawaiian Islands. This is a tropical storm, not quite as strong as a hurricane because we don't see the eye wall in there. This is still a serious weather system. And all of this information comes just from that satellite picture. It's so much information, and it's wonderful to look at. You see the beauty and the awe of nature right there depicted in that weather satellite. We call it a polar orbiter because the satellite flies high over the globe. Maybe we could look here at we happen to bring the planet Earth with us. This is our satellite. A polar orbit flies really close to the Earth, maybe 800 kilometers over the Earth, and goes up over the pole and then back down, and then the Earth spins under the satellite as it goes by. That's in contrast to the geostationary birds, which are much further out, and they don't view Alaska quite as well. So we love those polar orbiter satellites here in Alaska.
So when we're a lot closer, we get much better details and imagery and an idea of a better maybe position of what's going on when it's passing right over Alaska or right over Hawaii.
Yes, exactly right. The polar orbiter gives such a good view of places like Alaska. And because it's close to the planet, there's another aspect of satellites in the polar orbit that is helpful for weather forecasting. It's an aspect that's maybe not as immediately obvious as the pretty pictures that we see. And that is the capacity for the satellite to produce what's called a sounding. That is finding the vertical profile of temperature and moisture in the atmosphere. We've all heard of weather balloons. Weather balloons are launched here in Alaska twice a day at a number of airports, everywhere from Barrow to St. Paul Island to Kodiak, Anchorage and Fairbanks, Yakutat, a number of places. Launch these balloons, and we've got a picture of a balloon being launched at an airport, and the balloon goes up. It's pulling a little package, an instrument package with it that reports temperature, pressure, humidity data back, and we use that information to help feed what are called numerical weather prediction models.
The models.
The models, right. It's a mouthful, so we just call it the models. And these computer simulations, these models are computer programs that simulate the motion of the atmosphere. Well, how does a model know what the future will be like? You have to tell the model what things are like now. And you give it all kinds of information, including information from these satellite sounders. Very important. Just how important are they? We have a recent, comparatively recent study that really brings home, and this is Superstorm Sandy. We have a track image here of the track of Hurricane Sandy. Was down in the Caribbean around Cuba, and then it moved north over the ocean, offshore of the eastern seaboard, and then at the last minute, Sandy made what's called the left hook. It turned hard to the left and slammed into New Jersey. Was a major problem for the mid-Atlantic states, a calamity. It fused with another weather system and became known, this is not an official title, but Superstorm Sandy. It was quite the weather event. Well, the modelers, after the event, there's a group of modelers in Europe. They have a very good model, a frustratingly good model if you're the Americans trying to pursue their excellence. They reran their model afterwards in what's called a data denial study, where they kept everything the same. So this is 6 months after Sandy, but they went back, they reran the same model, they fed the model the same initial conditions, that is telling the model, okay, here's where we think Sandy is, down near Cuba in the Caribbean. Everything was the same as it was in the real forecast, except they didn't let the model know.
No satellite data.
No satellite data.
Okay.
So we're going to put that over here, no satellite data for you. The resulting forecast 5 days out, back when the real Sandy was happening and the model had the satellite data, the forecast was pretty good. We've got a graphic here on the left side. We show the forecast of where Sandy would be, and that's the red bullseye on the left. It's just south of where it actually wound up hitting. Not a bad forecast from this computer simulation, 120 hours out. On the right, you see the same model, but it didn't have the satellite data to help it understand things. And the storm is way offshore. It misses. The forecast is more accurate when the model has the satellite data. So that's the idea today we want to convey is weather satellites. They're important because they show us the pictures of where storms are. We see good examples of this. Yeah, the surveillance right now, it's great to look at those pictures. And in addition, behind the scenes, maybe not immediately obvious, but the models have to have that satellite data for them to be good forecasts. And then a meteorologist uses that information to help everyone with the forecast of where the storms will be in the future.
That is fascinating information that we can look at, see where things have been, because you can't know where you're going if you don't know where you've been. That's that old adage there. But seeing that satellites are actually helping us move forward in the weather information system is pretty amazing stuff.
You bet.
And if you want to check out Eric's satellite images that he's been talking about, whether that's something from today or last week or even much further back in Alaska history, you can easily do that yourself. Go to www.gina.alaska.edu and you can find those images there. Eric, thanks so much for joining us once again. And again, we will join you hopefully again soon for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts, where you'll tell us more really cool information about the satellites over our heads in Alaska. Thanks for joining us tonight, and we'll see you next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis still showing big area of open water out here from, of course, the Chukchi Sea northward there. But on the other hand, this is really closing off here with colder air. In fact, more cold air is going to come down here over the next couple of days. And so continued growth and a lot of growth up there, the area off the map there, even back through here. And toward the end of the forecast period, next 4 or 5 days, could see new ice forming once again here, especially Kotzebue Sound, Norton Sound, and even along the Yukon Delta coast. For the coastal water forecast for tomorrow, that front approaching, winds will be on the increase from the southeast up to 40 knots tomorrow afternoon. So full gales along the coast there, with seas up to 14 feet, minimum gales on the north coast, east coming up to 35, north 25, Lynn Canal, northeast 20, gusts 35 knots for Stevens Passage, Clarence Strait southeast at 25. And then for Tuesday, excuse me, southeast 15-knot winds for Lynn Canal and Stevens Passage, with southeast 20-knot winds in the forecast for Clarence Strait. Prince of Wales Island, southwest 20, or the marine area there, southeast 20. And then small craft advisories starting out southwest 25 in the central coast, turning south at 30 knots as you head north, and then swinging around to the east at 30 knots with 13-foot seas there for the extreme north coast. And for the North Gulf Coast, tomorrow, northeast winds 30 knots. That'll blow right down across the Barren Islands toward Kodiak. Small craft advisory, Southern Cook Inlet and Kamishak Bay, northeast 25. Northeast 20 for Northern Cook Inlet and 15 knots for Prince William Sound. Bringing it down to 10 knots for the Sound there on Tuesday with slight seas, Northern Cook Inlet, northeast 15. East 20 knots, eastern North Gulf Coast. Pick up to 25 knots out of the east here as you get over toward the west side, and even stronger for the Barren Islands, but not quite gales. East 30 knots, northeast 30 Kamishak Bay, and small craft advisories continue for Southern Cook Inlet. Kodiak Island, we've got gale force northeast winds tomorrow on the east side, northeast 30 Shelikof Strait, and from Sitkinak to Castle Cape, and then east winds here on the Pacific side down to Cape Sarachev at 25 knots, turn south 25 knots for the Bering Sea side, and southeast 30 for Bristol Bay. Northeast winds at 30 knots here for Bristol Bay on Tuesday in response to that big storm coming up from the south. Northeast winds all the way down to Cape Sarachev on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula. Storm warnings coming in south side in the afternoon. on Tuesday, up to 50 knots and gales from Castle Cape to Sitkinak, and then 30-knot winds for Kodiak Island. For the Fox Islands tomorrow, southwest 30 on the north shore of Unalaska Island, Pacific side north at 20, west 20 to 30 knots Unmak Island, and west 20 to 25 knots for Adak and Atka, and 20-knot winds from Amchitka to Shemya. For Tuesday, northwest 25 knots here for the western Aleutians, and 30 to 35 knot winds for Adak and Atka, and even stronger there, getting over toward Umak Island. We've got 35 to 45 knot gales, and then storm warnings coming in along the south side of Unalaska Island, north 30 on the north side. And for the southwest coast, east-southeast winds, 30 knots there for the coast tomorrow, 9-foot seas, east 30 knots, St. Matthew Island, small craft advisories for the Pribilof, south 25, east 25 for St. Lawrence Island. And then for the outlook on Tuesday, northeast 25, Norton Sound turn east, but come down to 20 knots there, St. Lawrence Island, all the way down along the Yukon Delta coast. Stronger though for the Kuskokwim Delta coast, northeast at 30, north 25 for the Pribilofs, northeast 25, St. Matthew Island. And for the central Arctic coast, east winds at 20 knots, east 30 knots for the western Arctic coast down to Cape Thompson to Wales, east winds at 20 knots with 4-foot seas. And for the eastern Beaufort Sea, north-northeast, 15 to 20 knots. And for Tuesday, north to northeast at about 20 knots for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, northeast 20 for the central coast. Gale warnings will be flying Tuesday and Tuesday afternoon here for the western Arctic coast all the way down to Cape Thompson, and 40-knot winds in those areas, and then small craft advisories for the southeast Chukchi Sea. For tonight, light snow, maybe a little breezy on the eastern Arctic coast there, but nothing significant. Mostly clear, calm winds over the east side. More clouds, chance of a little moisture here as you head west. Rain for the Pribilofs. Rain moves in tomorrow across the southeast coast. Next day, that holds but diminishes throughout the day. Big storm comes up, storm force winds of the Alaska Peninsula.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.